everyone. I welcome you all to the ILET's first virtual urban conference today, and we are joined by very analysts from different parts of the country and one international speaker as well. And then this will be moderated by founder and CEO. And this session will be chaired by Mr. Kamal Kishore Yadav, Commissioner, Chandigarh Municipal Corporation. In this session, eminent speakers, including Mr. Anthony Bites. He is Chief Urban NEOM, and he is also former Deputy Mayor of Barcelona Smart City. He has also worked with very renowned Indian smart city. We are also joined by Ms. Tanvi Garg. She is District Magistrate, New Delhi. We have with us Dr. Arvind Kumar Chaurasia, Commissioner, Meerut Municipal Corporation from Government of Uttar Pradesh, and Dr. Ravi Gupta, Founder and CEO of ILETS Technomedia. He is also Editor-in-Chief of all the ILETS publications, e-governance, e-health. Over to you, Dr. Ravi Gupta.
Welcome all the panelists and thanks, Arpit. We are having this virtual urban summit in the times of COVID-19, and we are going to discuss about what are the learnings and the ideas which have emerged because of the this COVID-19 crisis to the urban development sector. And as urban development practitioners and urban development administrators and professionals, what are the ideas and lessons we can use in our future urban development planning and strategies? So I will request each of the panelists to respond and give their initial comments for around 4 minutes on this topic, that lessons and ideas emerging from the COVID-19 situation. So let me request our first international speaker himself to start and give the opening remarks. Anthony, please.
Thank you very much, Ravi, Dr. Ravi Gupta. Thank you very much for hosting me. It's an honor being here with you this morning for me. I think that there's a first lesson that the COVID-19 is bringing to us, and the first lesson is how fragile we are, and all this certainty about the progress of humanity without taking care of all of us. This certainty that no matter what happens to anyone, we're progressing. Well, we have discovered that that's not true, or we all progress together, or this game is a disaster. The second lesson is about more related or intimately related, but more formally related to the theme, is the importance of the place where we live. Now that we have to spend our lives confined at home, all of a sudden we discover that the places in which we live, no matter if this place is Barcelona, New York, Delhi, wherever, the places in which most of the population of the world live are not places for us to live. We go there, we sleep, perhaps we eat a little bit, but we cannot live. Meaning by living, what life used to be about, eating, working, interacting, communicating, these places in which we live are not prepared for that. That should be a great revolution in terms of rethinking these spaces in which we live. And the third lesson is the importance of the digital era, in which India, by the way, has taken the lead. So how can we improve not only the physical space in which we live, but the surrounding spaces, those public spaces that allow us to interact in a safe way? How can we, digitally speaking, foresee the way in which we can improve, the way in which we can treat, follow, and in a way take care of most of the population individually and collectively? I think that these are 3 key lessons for us.
Sure. Thank you, Anthony. Your points about that we are thinking that where we are living, is it the right place to live? Is it the right way to live? Like these are the questions which are emerging. May I request our uh, eminent speaker, Kamal Kishore Yadav, to please talk about your views on the lessons and the ideas emerging from this situation, the COVID-19.
Good morning, everyone. It's a real pleasure to join you all. And I'm commissioner of one of the planned city of Chandigarh. I can say the first and foremost planned city of the modern India. But any crisis actually gives us a lot of opportunity to learn, and it's also a bit shock to think again whether the development model, planning model, and the way we are living, the way we are administrating the cities, is it actually a good model or it requires certain changes? So I personally feel, and as a city administrator, I feel that there are a lot of good or bad learnings, or we can say the learnings from this crisis. The best part is that now environment is getting better, ecological system is getting better, pollution levels are going low. Things are coming at a standstill also, and lot of people who are thinking that without them the earth is going to collapse. Now that mind game is actually now over. So now we know that earth can move on, and we are only the minuscule part of that. But along with that, as city administrator, I feel that this crisis has actually equalized everyone. It has not seen whether the person is going to be the COVID positive patient is maybe the person is from slum area, and maybe the one of the person or patient COVID positive patient can be the business class international traveler. So everybody is equal before this crisis. So it's really like equalizing, and as city administrator, it's giving me an opportunity to rethink on my city planning and how to deal with my city's EWS houses, EWS colonies, slums, and other things. How I can make them more livable, how they can be better or friendly for any type of crisis, so that actually they can work as shock absorber in themselves. There are a lot of innovations. We did it in Chandigarh. I will share that in the later part. But I think the biggest thing which I learned from this crisis is that after dedicating our around 55 days for dealing this crisis, the trust factor of citizens among government and government bodies, and especially local self-government, municipal corporations and other, that has actually risen a lot. Because earlier there were a lot of grievances, but now there are a lot of appreciations, bouquets that no, our city administrators, city employees, and municipal corporation employees, they are actually working very nice, and they are actually able to handle any type of crisis. Thank you very much. I will share my thoughts.
Sure. In the next round, we will be sharing more details. Thanks for the inputs, Kamalji. And may I request Dr. Arvind Kumar Chaurasia to give your initial comments on the ideas and the lessons emerging from the crisis. You are on mute, Arvind ji. Mute पर हैं आप. Arvind ji, Dr. Arvind, you are on mute. Yes.
Yeah, good morning, everybody.
Yes.
Am I audible to all?
Yes, yes. Yes.
Since that we are here with the population of the 18 lakhs people with the immediate municipal commissioner limits. 50% is the Hindu population and 50% is the Muslim populations. Hence, the challenges are very, very difficult with the some other community where the hygiene standards are not up to the marks.
Hmm.
We faced our first case before the first lockdown.
Hmm.
It was around 13th of the March. The
Hmm.
person came from the Maharashtra. At that time, there was no facility of the testing. We sent the sample to the NIV Pune.
Hmm.
Till the result came, there was more 23rd cases in the same family with the positive corona cases. Anyway, we started with the number of restrictions in the city. Since here municipal corporation and the district administrators work uh, all together, strict social distancing restrictions gives us result. And up to the second lockdown, our cases were only 113. But there was a lot of thoughts among the people. Uh, the temperature will lead to the collapse of these COVID cases. Everybody was believing if the temperature reaches to the 35 or 40 degrees centigrade, it would come to the our normal situations. As soon as the temperature rises, people avoided the social distancing, and at the same time, our cases abruptly increases, and it gone to the 300 within the 10 days. It is because of the social distancing was avoided by the peoples that's led to our condition worsen. Anyway, we have learned many of the things from this COVID-19. The trust of the people, as the municipal commissioner Chandigarh raised, the trust of the people over the municipalities has been increased since municipalities are working round the hours for the sanitization work and for the cleaning work and all the things. The pollution level has decreased. Almostly the sky are clean, the water bodies are very clean. Since I am a public health veterinarian also, it is one of the zoonotic disease. It is spread from the animal to the man. There are the many challenges ahead of us. Since the virus is mutating and the cases now we are seeing most of the asymptomatic cases. If there are 200 cases, 180 cases are the asymptomatic cases. People are unaware of it, whether they are suffering from the COVID or not. It is a very challenging for us to detect them since they are wandering here and there and spreading infections and not showing any kind of symptoms. This is the one of the challenges we have in front of us. I think this challenge may be with other cities also. Okay.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Arvind Kumar Chaurasia ji. May I request Tanvi Garg ji to talk about your experience in Delhi, the ideas and the lessons emerging briefly, and in the next round we will be going for another round of detailed presentation from each of the speakers. So, Tanvi ji, please.
Ravi, and it's an honor to be here with such panelists here. I'll just take a cue from the speakers before me regarding the broad lessons that we have learned, apart from the fact that there's a newfound appreciation for government employees, and
Yes.
definitely deserve that, and maybe the frontline workers or be the administrative staff who are still managing the while ensuring social distancing. There is a unique thing that I would just like to highlight. I'm sure this must be faced in other places also, but a metropolitan like Delhi, we are seeing migration of workers in huge numbers. And this is posing another round of challenge for the administrators in cities like ours. And I think at a very broad level, at a macro level, it also has highlighted the challenges to, or the limitations, I should say, to globalization. I think the COVID crisis has forced us to rethink the way the labor surplus states are actually providing labor to labor deficit states in the country. This kind of movement, which we haven't seen, I think I could only think of partition.
Yes.
Such huge movement of people from one part of the country to the other. So, and this another round of challenge, as I said, as a urban administrator. At a personal level, I feel, at an individual level, I should say, the personal hygiene, the concept of social distancing, which is otherwise also very important but has often been ignored in poor countries as well. I think this is one issue which is going to stay with us for all times to come. This is one of the learnings from this crisis. So I think the other speakers have already highlighted the issues. So as we move to the main session, I will draw my more greater observation into what I've already stated.
Exactly. Great. Thank you, Tanviji, for highlighting the very important issue of labor migration and the hygiene, which has emerged in a big way now. My question to Anthony. Anthony, you have worked in various countries of the like across continents, and I hope like you are seeing that how different countries are handling the situation differently. There is a different strategy in European countries, and East countries a different plan. There is a different strategy in the Middle East. There is some strategy in US, some strategy in the Asian countries, Singapore, Hong Kong, India, very soon. So how are you seeing the regions for different strategies, different outcomes? How are these things evolving? If you can give a perspective on this.
Yeah, I think that as Ms. Garg said a minute ago, the first thing that comes to our mind is that in those countries in which the public sector is well prepared with a good set of professionals in the administration, in the public health sector, wherever the public health sector and the public social sector has been strong, the capacity to react against this sudden pandemic has been higher. And I want to put the example in Europe, for example, the case of Germany, in which the level of infections has been as high as anywhere, but the death toll is one of the lowest in the world. Why? Because there was a capacity to take care of the people in hospitals. And I want to go back to what I said before, and because the level of data and the level of availability to reach out to people was immense. This is something that is crucial. We see, like in very advanced countries such as Spain or Italy, the capacity to react has been quite low, even though then the public health sector has taken over, with a combination of another very important thing: decentralization. The more decentralized are the countries, the more power you give to municipalities, the more power the commissioners, the more power the mayors, the more power the district heads have experienced, the more capacity they have had to attend the population. In Spain, for example, someone decided for a while that the central government had to centralize the distribution of masks. Well, it was a disaster because the central government couldn't manage this. Finally, as we have seen in United States, for example, no matter what the advancement of the country, if there's no sense of real community, the disaster is at hand. We all have heard how Governor Cuomo from New York has even menaced the president of the country to declare him war if he continued speaking as he was speaking. Why? Because people want to feel that there's someone really taking care of. And this combination of good administration, decentralization, big important public services, and then the fabric of the city is also very important. The fabric of the cities and the communities and the interaction between the rural world and the urban world is also another key factor. Those countries that are balanced did well. Those countries that are not balanced do wrong.
Interesting perspective, Anthony. Thanks for this. May I request Kamal Kishore Yadav, you to please talk about what are the innovations which happened in our Chandigarh in this situation? How did you handle the crisis on the ground? Please.
As all district administrations, state administrations, and city administrations, because nobody was actually ready or prepared, or we can say nobody was aware that such type of pandemic can actually come, and nobody was foreseeing it. So the solutions were also coming from out of the box thinking. So first of all, in Chandigarh, because when the lockdown started, Chandigarh imposed curfew. And in curfew, the major problem was to provide essential supplies to citizens, and also to ensure social distancing in our wholesale markets, because that was the main place where almost daily 4,000, 5,000 people were actually gathering, and there was no solution to that. So but because our public transport buses became idle, so we utilize our public transport buses for home delivery of fruit and vegetable and groceries in different sectors, villages, slums, periphery areas, and around 125 buses daily went in different part of the city, and they provided the basic essential deliveries to the households. Meanwhile, we were facing the problem of a lot of congestion in our wholesale market. So we shifted one portion of that market, which is vegetable and fruit market, in our idle interstate bus terminal. So bus terminal has been converted in vegetable and fruit market temporarily, and because it was quite a big area, we could manage the social distancing and other things, and by the grace of God and our thinking, we ensure that the Mandi is not becoming the breeding ground for COVID-19 infection. Then under Smart City, we were having our own integrated control command center. So we customized that control command center for dealing the issues related to COVID and tracking all the cases and other things. So COVID tracker, ensuring that the persons are in quarantine, they are not breaking the quarantine norms or home isolations and other things. We ensured that by use of technology. So it was technology also which actually helped us in contact tracing, taking the details and other things. Even some of the positive cases which we thought that they are not very clear about giving their information, that where they went and to whom they were in contact. We got the call details of those persons from the mobile operator, and it became a good source of information for us, and some of those primary contacts actually converted into positive COVID cases. So that is means one thing is out of the box thinking, second is how to use technology in a better way, and third was because Chandigarh was having DBT system, means here there was no distribution of food grain. But directly 63,000 families were getting direct tax benefit in their accounts in shape of money only, not the food grain. But when Government of India started Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana, and we were mandated to provide wheat and pulses to the citizens or these beneficiaries, 63,000 families, we came up with an alternate solution, and we actually robbed in the volunteers, our own employees, and within a time of around 6 days, we distributed 85% of these essential commodities to these really needy people. So there were a lot of other things also, but I would like to sum up here. There are a lot of other speakers who will also going to share. So these are certain good or we can say some different approach which Chandigarh took. Thank you.
Thank you, Kamalji, for highlighting the unique approach which the city had to adopt in Chandigarh. May I request Tanvi Gargji to please talk about your experience in Delhi, like how did your organization handle the situation? What were the innovations happening? Tanviji.
So I'd like to share that New Delhi had its first challenge around the first week of March, when around 12th of March, when Government of India declared COVID to be a national disaster. And at the same time, there was a looming crisis that a couple of series of international flights were coming to the Delhi International Airport. And it was also decided to screen those passengers, quarantine those passengers found to be susceptible. It was initially thought that this will help us in maybe, as one would say, to nip the evil in the bud and maybe try to control the transmission from people who may be subject to the virus in other countries. So what we did initially is that we realized that it will not be possible to create quarantine facilities in the government setup so quickly. So I took the initiative of roping in the private hoteliers. There was a lot of apprehensions, there was a lot of resistance, and we urgently needed to create the capacity for paid quarantine. I'm happy to share with you, I think New Delhi was
Some connectivity issue here.
pioneer in the initiative of other. Ravi, am I audible?
Yes, right now, yes. We had lost you in between.
Yeah, so I'm mentioning that even now as I speak, we are implementing the second phase of Vande Bharat, where again the paid quarantine facilities which we created have come into use. This is one aspect I definitely wanted to talk about today because, as I mentioned initially, there was a lot of resistance from the hoteliers, and this initiative of New Delhi helped us multiply the place for quarantine at a very short notice. Secondly, the approach that we used here, which everywhere in terms of containment zones, but initially the Government of India and the NCDC were talking about large-scale containment zones. What we did innovatively in New Delhi is we started with very small containment zones. I must mention here that the very first containment zone that I formed was Bengali market, which was much debated and highlighted in the national media. We were under constant media glare, and there were a lot of requests from the residents who themselves were very unsure as to how we are going to implement, how we are going to ensure the supply of essential commodities in the containment zone. But with a lot of cooperation from the civil defense volunteers, with the residents coming on board, we were successfully able to contain that area. And I would be very happy to share with you that once after the containment order was issued, there was no enhancement in the cases, and subsequently we could descale and decontain, we could scale down and decontain that area. And in this process, the residents also appreciated the efforts of the administration, so much so that the resident welfare associations themselves came forward, contributed, and provided scooties to the volunteers who were providing essential commodities at their doorstep. Thirdly, I would like to mention about the hunger relief centers that the Delhi had set up throughout the length and breadth of the state, and including New Delhi district also. This was meant to ensure immediate availability of cooked food to people who were perhaps due to various issues which came in the way of their livelihood generation as the lockdown kicked in. The main effort was not to let anybody go on hungry stomach, and the midday meal suppliers were roped in, and we designated specific hunger relief centers across the district, where even now I think many people, in fact we are serving as many as the 35,000 meals per day for lunch and 35,000 for dinner in New Delhi district alone. Then as regards the food grain distribution is concerned, apart from what Kamal sir has already mentioned, what New Delhi has, there is a system of e-coupon which was started, and the people who could apply online. In fact, we used our volunteers to help and identify such beneficiaries who could just apply for an e-coupon and who could come to the center, and there were allocation of food grains to them there. We effectively used this model to cater to the demand of food grains, and this is how in New Delhi we have come up with solutions. What I would also like to mention here is that during this evolving crisis, I have noticed that at every levels there has been a rethinking and what can be done to mitigate this crisis. Guidelines have been ever evolving. We are trying to keep up with this challenge of following those evolving guidelines.
Thank you. I think as you mentioned that guidelines have been evolving, and like every day each administrator has to think about how to implement this and handle all these guidelines. And thanks for highlighting the various innovations, Tanvi. May I request Dr. Arvind Kumar Chaurasia ji to highlight that how in city of Meerut the things have been handled and how has the administration handled this whole challenge evolving every day dramatically?
Okay, what we are doing as far as the municipalities is concerned, for the waste collection, we are collecting waste from the containment zone separate. We have employed their separate vehicles for the collection of the garbage and the whatever is waste collection is from the containment zone, and we are sending it for the incineration as per the guidelines. Uh, Second thing, in the containment zone, since there is no movement at all, we are supplying all the essential goods supply by their on the phone calls. We have employed the persons for the door delivery to these persons. Even though since the curfew is imposed in the night hours from the 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., if there is any need, we supply all the items by the door step delivery by the many of the person we have employed it. For the laborers, those are coming from the Delhi or some other state, since we are facing a number of problem of migrant laborers. Per day, we are preparing 1 lakh food per day for these laborers. So though they are migrating or we are sending from the train or from the bus, we are preparing 1 lakh foods per day, morning and in the evening hours. In the same way, for the laborers, those who are residing, those have their cooked facility, we are providing grain and wheat flour and the rice to them. It is almost 6,000 person for the laborers, those are not getting their Rozgar employment. We have given 1,000 rupees to the 18,000 people to them. But now the people are asking how long this COVID will last. Since the people have now, they are tired, they want to move in the city. That is a great challenge for us. There is the number of theories. One more thing that we have also done, the use of technology in the tracing of the people. Since as from the Delhi, the Jamaitis migrated and they got shelter in somewhere, such places, none was ready to say where they are hiding. We just tracked their number from the Delhi, from the tower, and we tracked those who are working in the Meerut. In the way, we tracked almost 86 Jamaitis who are residing in the Meerut. And among the 86, we found 4 of them positive for the COVID. In the same way, for the contact tracing, we are also using, apart from their call details, we are using their call details from whom they have met. And this has quite helpful for us. We have settled Nigrani Samiti, ward level Nigrani Samiti. Those are looking the persons who have come from the abroad or from the other cities of the India, so that those can be kept in quarantine. These measures have helped us a lot of. Now the things that is more important, the herd immunity. The people are asking about the herd immunity, about the mass immunity. How will it develop? None is aware of it. There is the mass treatment among the people. People are using vitamin C tablets every day. The people are using warm water every day for the 4 or 5 times. Though there is no written things, but all has helped us. And I think the mass treatment measure should come in forward with the government, so that we can face and we can cope up with all this problem. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Arvindji, for highlighting the challenges and how have you handled in Meerut. May I request Anthony to talk about that you have worked on various smart cities in various countries. How does the concept of smart cities and this COVID-19 situation relate to each other? Are these preparations we have done in the smart cities useful to handle a disaster or a pandemic like COVID-19 right now or in future? So, like, how do you relate these two different concepts, smart cities in COVID-19? Anthony.
Thank you very much, Ravi. This is a very good question because I think that we all should think twice now when we go to places and we start talking about smart cities. We should think twice if when we talk about smart cities, we have to talk about sensors, we have to talk about LED lights, we have to talk about improving the ratio of management or this or that, or we should think about smart cities in relation to the social needs of the population. I always, when I was in Pune, or when people came to me and we invested a lot of time and public money in tools that allowed us to later on track the situation of the population. People said, no, but the smart city should be about improving the traffic system. I said, look, improving the traffic system in Pune and in other cities of India is less related to smart cities than having a better public transportation. That's all. When rich people will decide to take the bus or take the metro, the thing is going to change dramatically because the social behavior is going to change. But the important thing is, how do we track my mother? That's the important thing. Or how do I track the health of my children? That's the important thing. And a smart city has to invest in the capacity we put in the hands of the public sector in order to make sure, as the commissioners were saying here very, very well, for example, the Commissioner Merat saying that we have to track people in order to know where they move. This, always respecting the privacy and the freedom of people. One of my prides of having been honored of living and working in India is that India is the biggest democracy on earth, and you should be very proud of it. So preserving this individual freedom is crucial. But once having secured that, the capacity of a smart city to make sure that we reach out to those that are more needed, that we reach out to those that are more indefense. This is the crucial point. And I think that we have to shift a little bit the idea of a smart city towards something that I would like to call social smart city or civic smart city, more focused on the social service, on the social services. As we were saying at the beginning, we see that we are very fragile, and the mere fact, as Commissioner Kishore was saying a moment ago, the mere fact that by lowering the amount of travels and everything, we see how we are improving the health of Earth, which should make us think how we can change some behaviors, but how we can improve the health situation of many people. I want to say something more because, as always that I'm in contact with India, I learn things, and today I learned something that I wasn't aware of, is this movement of population looking for work, which means looking to make a life. No? Another lesson of the COVID-19 is that by exporting work, we don't solve the problem. So another very thinking that should come is, how do we make it possible to generate jobs and opportunities by the places where we live? So working and living should become a part of the same thing. And I have to say that Europe and the Western world has been selfish, completely selfish by just invading and exporting the worst things. But they made a horrible mistake. We made a horrible mistake, was exporting industrial capacity, giving a bad lesson to everybody. Everybody thinks that we can do things elsewhere. No. What is important is you have to do everything around yourself, even those things that you don't like, making everyone responsible of everything. And I think that this is something that the new smart city, the new social smart city, should be tackling immediately.
Sure. Anthony, thanks for highlighting this concept of social smart cities. Mr. Kamal Kishore Yadav ji, you are handling the Chandigarh Smart City. You are the commissioner and also the CEO. And how have the concept of smart cities and COVID-19 related with each other? How has been the preparation for the smart city, which has been the work done earlier, has been useful right now? And what are the lessons which maybe which have evolved so that in the future smart cities, some more concepts can be added? in your view, Kamalji?
I think smart means how accommodative or how futuristic approach we are having. It's how we are forcing our problems and thinking of their solutions and working on those solutions. So it's true. There are certain smart city solutions which are actually helping us here in Chandigarh. First and foremost, the concept of integrated control command centers. So this is a concept which has been brought by the smart cities in Chandigarh throughout the country. And these control command centers are actually working as war rooms for fight against COVID. So one good thing is that we are having certain technical solutions or technical technologies available, which can actually help us in analyzing the situation and then making our decisions better, and even concentrating our energies on focused areas. The heat maps prepared by our integrated control command centers, they actually worked as the real target areas for us, and we actually concentrated on that area, and finally the numbers are actually receding. So one good thing is this. Second, the type of concept Anthony was suggesting, that the social smart cities. So it's really good because in smart city there are certain pan city solutions. Pan city solutions are actually meant for the throughout city. It is not differentiating between posh areas or central business district or slum areas or the EWS colonies and other things. So smart city actually gave this concept of pan city solutions, and we are happy to see that the solutions which are provided on the pan city scale, they are actually giving us good result, and those services which were upgraded during smart city execution of work or smart city plan for pan city, they worked very nicely in it, because we were having the supervisory control SCADA systems for that, might be the drinking water, management of sewage water, management of treated water and other things. So those are actually working as a good thing. Third thing is the use of GPS technology and the master planning or the GPS data which we were having with our smart cities. So those are the contour maps which were actually giving us a lot of layers the way we want to design them. So we were having COVID layers, different type of COVID layers on that, then essential services, then supply of cooked food, rations, movement of labor and other persons. So we were monitoring each and everything and getting solutions localized, but by use of technology. And I think this is the right way, or this is the smart way to deal with the solutions, or coming up to the solutions and dealing the problems. And smart cities actually help us in making the things better, or taking our decision in a better way or more targeted.
Sure. Great point about that. Some of the smart city solutions or services are agnostic to rich and the poor. They are across the city. And but how do we make it more inclusive to more citizens as much as possible, and even to the lower strata of the society? That may be thought in a bigger way. Requesting Tanvi Garg to talk about. You have like seen the situation, the crisis unfolding. That the smart city as a concept has been there for some time now, 4 or 5 years. So how are you seeing that the concept of smart city and the COVID-19 relate to each other? Any new things which should be included or excluded in the smart cities? Any suggestions, Tanviji?
Dr. Ravi, there is one thing I would say, that smart cities is the way forward when we talk about, adjusting to this new normal. That's how I like to put it. because COVID is around. I mean, everybody believes that it's here to stay for some time. Nothing is going to dramatically change in the next couple of days. We have to evolve the way we live, the way we work, the way we function around this new reality. And that's why I call it adjusting to the new normal. Now, as recently as just day before yesterday, the ICMR has issued new guidelines as to how the workplaces, especially in the government sector, should deal with situations where positive cases are reported in close vicinity in a small office or a slightly larger campus with either having more number of cases. Now, what I'm trying to say here is what Mr. Anthony mentioned in the very beginning of this discussion. We have now to prioritize at the individual level, at the organizational level. And here, when we talk about smart city, the concept of work from home, which till a few weeks back, when we would talk about a few months back in the government sector, was totally derided upon. I mean, in Indian government setup, it was like, aisa ho hi nahi sakta. How could it happen? How could government servants work from home? But here we are. I mean, we are facing situations, we have faced situations where the manpower availability was curtailed to a bare minimum. And we were expected to deliver 200% times, 300% times. And yet the system has evolved in a manner. I think what the way forward now for the policymakers and for us, at administrative level, when we are talking about smart city, the concept of, proximity between workspace and where we live, the development of such communities where, we could take away the unnecessary toll of travel, long distance travels, which we see in metropolitans like Delhi, Bombay, other places as well, where you work, where you're actually traveling for couple of hours to reach to your workplace, and then work there and come back and travel the same distance back. So I think it's high time we started evolving in that manner, and work from home needs to be a focus area. The issue is, how do we monitor the performance of employees, and to make sure that when we're talking about working from home, they actually work from home. So that has to be facilitated, that has to be built upon as an important component. And second thing which I mentioned regarding earlier, I had spoken about the migration, the large scale migration which Merit Commissioner has just referred to, the in migration for Merit and the out migration for Delhi. I think we are looking at a very different time in the future, where the labor surplus states from which so far have been largely exporting labor to metropolitans, they will have to come up for local sustainable models. There have been limitations to globalization, and this challenge, this crisis has shown us that we will have to come up with sustainable development models within the local economy as well. So these are the two things which I think should be the cornerstone, according to me, when we're talking about smart city in the time of crisis and the lessons we have taken from COVID.
Perfect. I think where Tanvi and Anthony, some of the ideas which converge is that Anthony talked about that where you live and where you work should be near to each other. So it should not happen that you live in Bihar and you work in Punjab, right? So it's like the industry has to move from Gujarat to Bihar or Gujarat to Odisha, or like vice versa. So, a specific question to Dr. Arvind Kumar Chaurasia ji. You have mentioned about the health challenges, and each of us is like in all the cities are only thinking about COVID-19 as urban administrators. Now, health has been the work of Department of Health in each country and each state. But each urban administrator is like right now thinking COVID-19, which is a health problem. So there are multiple questions by the audience that should the urban administrators now have health as an important component in their work profile. The municipal corporation should their work profile should change, and also health has to be included as an important profile. Arvindji, you are on mute, Arvindji.
Yeah, health should be included in the syllabus of the municipalities. Since the municipalities are working for all together for different jobs for the health, our integrated control and command center acts as a war room. We changed for the telemedicine facility, where through the telemedicine facility we just integrated number of doctors with the specialties, so that they could give their prescription to those people who are locked down and they cannot get any prescription from doctors. Through telemedicine, we are giving today at least 500 to 600 remedies to the patients residing in the lockdown. This has helped us a lot of, but it has need to be improved, and the health sector should be included with the smart city profile. Second, the things that we have learned from this COVID, as the district magistrate Delhi told us, we should generate employment in ourselves so that these migrations should be, so it cannot be stopped, it should be minimized. And we have to include this chapter also in the smart city profile, the self-sustainable, our self-sustained facility, so that we can generate employment ourselves. With the smart city, we should also include the industry sector. Industry sector is not cared about in smart city. We only will go for school, better health, better public places, better crossings. But we never think about the industrial estates. We should also think about the smart industrial estate to develop in the smart city, so that the people get a lot of employment in that area, and the economy should increase through all this. Many of the things, one thing also is to be considered. We have to be smart in the social smart city, not only the smart city in the infrastructure. That is also one of the lessons we have learned from the COVID.
Sure. My question is to Kamal Kishore Yadav ji, emerging from the points raised by other panelists. One point was, which was raised by Tanvi Garg, was distance between where we work, where we live, work from home in the government. The third issue, that health should be a bigger component of the municipal corporation agenda. And fourth is, as raised by Dr. Arvind Kumar Chaurasia, that industrial estates focus, that normally municipal corporations are focusing on the residential area, crossing, traffic, all these things. So more focus on industrial estates also for employment generation. So if you can give your perspective, Kamalji.
I was just reading the latest edition of The Economist, and the headline is Goodbye Globalization. So I don't know whether we are saying goodbye to globalization, or we are globalized in a different way. Rather than physically moving in different parts of globe, now Antony is connected to us, and we all are connected to each other. Not on a physical platform, but obviously on a virtual platform. So I think there are 2-3 issues which you have raised. One is regarding the work from home. Obviously, this is a good concept, and there are certain activities where work from home is quite possible. I can't say my sweeper will work from home, but or my pump operator will work from home. But obviously, I have the solution of mechanizing the thing. I have the solution of automizing the thing, and so keeping the supervisory control in our SCADA centers. But then the question will arise that in a country like India, where we are having a lot of population and problem of unemployment is there. So should we go for such mass level mechanization, or we should balance out in certain things? So I think this is the right time when the government should think on the areas, even government also and private sector also, that which are the activities or in which the physical presence is required, and which are the activities where the person can actually work from home or from anywhere, sitting in cafe, restaurants, and somewhere else. They can work from anywhere. So this thinking is coming in corporate world also, government also, they are working on this. And I think in next 1 month or 2 months, things are going to settle, and there will be a lot of activities which will be on which we will be working from home. The second thing is that our government offices are having a lot of influx of visitors. visitors are coming to get the service done for redressal of their grievances. So this is the right time for cities, city administrations and district administration and state also, that we should mechanize or digitalize all our thing and provide the maximum services on online platform, which we are already doing. But now is the time when we should actually work on this very sincerely, and also to prepare a system, robust system of grievance redressal, so that people are not required to visit government offices. In case there is something very urgent or such type of work where nobody is listening or there are no solutions, they can visit the respective places. Second is the health issues. Obviously, health somehow remain priority when it arises or the situation demands. We are also not taking care of our body until we fall sick. So there are issues, the health sector and especially the public health sector. Public health sector means sanitization, as Tanvi already mentioned, the personal hygiene, office hygiene, home hygiene, and even the business premises hygiene. We have to actually work on this, and only government can't work on this. Every citizen has to take care of himself, and government can chip in. Government can actually make awareness campaigns. Government can actually handhold the persons who can't take care of their health issues. They can be given free health services and other things. So obviously this is going to be the topmost agenda for, I think, next 2-3 years. Like when plague came in Surat. So before that, Surat was never bothered about their cleanliness and sanitation. But after plague, I think Surat is right now having one of the robust system of cleanliness system and sanitation system. And that's why Surat is still performing very well in all other parameters. So public health and health parameters, they are going to be one of the major priority for governments. And third thing is regarding the industrial setups and how to manage our. I think this was the last query.
Yes. I think we will
Yes.
just.
So industries are also the factory setups, the industrial complexes settings, proper spacing between the workers who are actually giving their services over there. That is actually critical, because right now this pandemic has actually equalized everyone. Now the owner of the factory is also that much in the red zone, that the lowest staff or lowest worker of his team. So this is actually a game changer, which is going to equalize a lot of things. And I think everybody has to come up with their own innovative or better solutions for dealing all type of crisis or all type of challenges which this pandemic is giving, and all type of lessons which we are learning from this.
So, Kamalji,
I'd like to take leave also, because I have to attend one meeting. So
yes.
If you permit, I can go in my war room meeting. Governor Sahab
okay, so we are actually concluding now. So we are
that's
going to,
that's
yeah.
So I'm
so
here for around 10-15 minutes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the last 5 minutes of this panel now, and I'm going to request each of the panelists to talk about opportunities. There is gloom all around. There is a massive layoffs happening all around the world. Airlines, hotels are in great distress, and it is affecting all other industries also. Big time. Jobs are being lost daily, and employment is a huge issue now. Livelihood is a big issue now. So I am going to request each of the panelists to talk about what are the opportunities for job creation and livelihood creation in these gloomy situations. And this, I will request each of the panelists to end. Like this is the last round of question I'm asking. 2 minutes of answers expected from each of the panelists. So I am requesting Tanvi Garg to start with that.
So, Dr. Ravi, here when we are talking about the employment opportunities and the opportunities per se, I would just you would mention the hotels. Now, here I would mention how this situation in Delhi, when I talked about paid quarantine, the situation has changed. From the first phase, when we were actually struggling to bring the hoteliers on board, now they're seeing this quarantine as a business opportunity.
Yeah.
And more and more queries to us as to how they can start offering paid quarantine. There we have a market which is the consumers wanting to pay for the quarantine, and here we have the supplier who's wanting to take them. Now there is obviously going to be some mismatch in the terms of what the supplier expects and what the consumer wants to pay. So yes, these situations are dynamic. But yes, apart from this, in terms of the employment generation, the opportunity creation, I think skill development, well, I think for decades we've been talking about it. Now is the time like never before. And yes, what Kamal sir had already raised, that it's not that every kind of work can be done without physical intervention, but there is now going to be a scope for virtual engagement of workers. So I think that is where I think the policy needs to be fine-tuned and needs to be seen that wherever possible, be the government sector, be the private sector, wherever possible, wherever feasible, the skill set has to be transformed in such a manner that the physical intervention, the physical presence, the physical interface with either the public, the client has to be minimized, and we could move towards these kind of employment generation opportunities. The private sector has already started working on it, and just as example, I would like to share that one of the foremost car makers in the country, who happens to be in my corporate office in my jurisdiction, had reached out to us a couple of days back, suggesting that they will be working on only 33% capacity. And yes, they were running full operations. So of course, there is definitely a component even in private sector, which the companies can outsource or perhaps fine tune in a manner that the people can join from home. So employment generation and opportunity creation will have to work around this concept. And whether we like to believe it or not today, this is the way forward. The physical intervention, the physical interface has to be minimized in the overall scenario that we are facing.
Sure. Then Vijay, thanks for highlighting the examples of hotels becoming quarantine centers. And Anthony, your views on, in these gloomy situations, opportunities for job creation, employment creation, and economic regeneration. Yeah.
Wow. Perhaps I'm getting old, and I used to be more idealistic when I was younger, and now I try to be more realistic. Of course, there are going to be opportunities, but I think that before the opportunities, I'm perhaps sorry not to now, as a first approach, not giving a hopeful ending to my words, but the challenges that we're facing are so big, so many people that are going to have a very hard time all over the world, that it's a bit childish, I think, when you listen to some politicians saying, oh, don't worry, because the first thing that we will have to do is will be making sure that we understand the size of the disaster. Because many, of course, now it's been some time that I haven't been to India, but at least, for example, in Barcelona, in my city, the ones that suffer the most are the silent people, those people that have groceries, those people that are autonomous workers, those people that are self-employed, those people that illegals that come from other countries. Who cares about them? And they cannot reinvent their jobs. When we have seen other revolutions, you saw that there was a pace. This has come, boom, like this. In 3 months, we have changed the world. Well, we know, we didn't. A virus, something very small, changed us. And I think that this is something that perhaps the opportunity is not so immediate. The opportunity has to be a change here and a change here, I mean, in the heart, and socially speaking, and helped, of course, by technology. And then, yes, of course, there will be many opportunities. And today we have seen some of them, this change in the way we work, the change in the consciousness of what is sustainability. This idea that the command and control centers provide us with information that we didn't have before. The message is we will have to think a lot and we have to become social. Otherwise, we don't have future.
Great, Anthony. Thanks for highlighting about the size of the problem. The challenges are huge. Dr. Arvind Kumar Chaurasia, your views about what Anthony just mentioned about where to change here and where to change here. Your views on this.
Okay, this COVID has given us number of opportunities. Our import has minimized. We are now become the self-sufficient in many of the manners. As you know, Meerut is the city of industries. It is also known as a city of the country technology. Now we are producing PPE kit at Meerut. Now we are producing bleaching powder at Meerut. Now we have gone ventilator production, ventilator manufacturing at Meerut. This was not possible beyond say 6 months ago. Now the COVID has given us a lesson to be self-sufficient, self-independent in the many of the manners. That has given us a new opportunity to be in the manner of employment, in manner of industries, and in many things. And it has given us an opportunity how to adopt our local product too.
Yes. Great. Dr. Arvind, thanks for highlighting that cities are now thinking about producing things themselves. Kamal Kishore Yadav ji, question to you, and this is the last question of the panel, and we will end with you. So what you say is very, very important. So the question to you is that if you look at the smart city plan made by the Ministry of Urban and Housing Affairs, there is a component about startups. There is a component about creating employment opportunities in the smart cities. How do you think that this point will become an important agenda in this depressing times of where the job losses are happening and the employment generation is not happening? So smart city heads will also have to think about this issue of employment generation. Kamalji.
Sure, because any new situation or any new circumstances require different innovative ideas. And as Commissioner Meerut was mentioning that the local units are manufacturing ventilators now. In Punjab also we are having a lot of hosiery industries and the cloth industry, which are actually now manufacturing PPEs. So this is the time when even the existing or established big industrial houses are rethinking their strategies, and this is the best time to incubate our startups, because startups, this is the right time when a lot of new ideas are coming. And under Smart City Chandigarh, we are working with around 39 central government and Chandigarh administration institutions, which are actually hosted in Chandigarh. And there is a innovation circle we are having of CRIC. So under that innovation circle, we are working on a lot of things. Now in PGI, they created a robotic system to ensure that the COVID patients or COVID ward is getting service from that robot. So this is a time when we must encourage new ideas. We must encourage new startups, and these are going to change the lot of courses of industries, corporate sectors, and government thinkings in future. Now new platforms are coming, multiplexes are off, so OTT platforms are becoming more viable for launching movies and other things, which earlier nobody was thinking on that. Because when we are used to of something, we are bound by our own inertias. And these type of crises are actually shaking moments for everyone. And this is the right time when a lot of young, brilliant minds will come up with a lot of new ideas. And our startups are going to be the backbone of our new economy. So I'm having high hopes for startups, and from smart city side also, and from administration side also, we are going to help as much as startups which are possible.
Great. Uh, Excellent inputs on the startups, Kamalji. And I must thank all our esteemed panelists, Dr. Arvind Kumar Chaurasia from Meerut, Anthony Wives joining from, I think like you are sitting in Saudi Arabia, I suppose.
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Yeah. And so your heart is in sitting in Spain. You are in physically in Saudi Arabia.
My heart is sitting in India.
Okay, great. Thanks. And Kamalji joining from Chandigarh, and Tanvi joining from Delhi. I am sitting in Noida, and my colleague sitting in Lucknow. So it's like a virtual conference we have just done, and amazing discussions. Thanks for joining, and I thank all the audience for joining here. And we have another session happening at 12 p.m. So I will request whoever the speakers and the audience can join again. You may please join again. And Arpit, you can give the last concluding remarks. Arpit, please.
Thank you, Dr. Ravi. And you've already given the concluding remarks. I will once again thank all the eminent panelists of this session. And I'll request all the audience who have joined, please stay tuned, because in another 15 minutes, we are going to start the next session that will talk about future of the smart cities, urban development, and smart projects and smart solutions. In this session, we discussed about the crisis management, and in the next session, we will talk about the future of smart cities and urban development. So once again, I thank Dr. Arvind Chaurasia, Ms. Tanvi Garg, Mr. Kamal Kishore Yadav, and Mr. Anthony Weiss. So Mr. Anthony will resume for the next session as well. So he'll be the panelist for the next session. And thank you so much. It was a very wonderful and very meaningful session. I thank you all of you once again. Thanks.
Thank you, each of you. Namaskar. Thank you.
Namaskar.
Yes.
Thank you.